I'm going to get this out of the way right now because I know there's going to be someone in the comments who's going to get all in their feelings and start white knighting for this supposed kids movie. Here's the issue with that logic. While some kids will enjoy this movie, because most kids take movies at face value, which they should. The other part to that equation is that as a longtime Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan, I noticed a lot of things that don't quite mesh with what we know and love about these characters. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
Before I get started, I'd like to kindly ask that you hit the like button, and please subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem follows the Turtle brothers, who after years of being sheltered from the outside world, set out to win the hearts of New Yorkers and be accepted as normal teenagers. They also set out to take on a mysterious crime syndicate, but they soon get in over their heads when an army of mutants is unleashed upon the city. Okay, right off the bat, Seth Rogen and company clearly set out to modernize the Ninja Turtles with this cinematic reboot. And we all know that the definition of modernizing something in 2023 typically involves stripping away what makes that property unique and recognizable in the first place.
Why did these things always happen to me?
And I'm going to draw a line in the sand right now and say the Ninja Turtles are one of those brands that does not need to be modernized. There's a reason that this property, this franchise, has been relevant for as long as it has. And that's because it's already universally appealing and timeless. Even the Turtles' 80s inspired lingo, which they typically use, has stood the test of time. In a weird twist of fate, that sort of stuff doesn't date the Turtles like you would think it would. It's actually synonymous with them, and it's part of their legend. It's part of what makes people like them. And how many times have we seen people try to reinvent the Ninja Turtles and failed miserably? To this day, no one has been able to match the impact of that iconic 80s cartoon or the more serious 1990 film.
Wise man say forgiveness is divine, but never pay full price for late pizza.
Those two interpretations are the benchmark for this franchise, and even though they had very different tones, they still managed to coexist with each other because, for one, they are very well done, and two, because they both managed to still capture the essence of these characters and what they can be. Mutant Mayhem, I believe, is the first time they've tried to make the Turtles look, sound, and act like legit teenagers, albeit modern teenagers. And I have to be honest, while that sounds like a good idea on paper, it doesn't necessarily work with how they executed it. The designs of the Turtles and the animation style used to bring them to life was fine. The issue lies in their voices and their characterizations, and this applies to Splinter as well. I felt like the voice actors who played Leonardo and Raphael actually worked for the most part. Donatello and Michelangelo, however, sounded more adolescent than teenager.
For the kids.
And to me, that just felt like a questionable creative decision. Splinter is voiced by Jackie Chan, and again, in theory, that sounds like a great idea. The issue is that Splinter in this movie feels like Splinter in name only. I understand that this movie is supposed to be an origin of sorts, that we are supposed to be seeing these characters for the first time very early on in their crime-fighting careers before they are fully formed into the characters that we know and love. And I like the idea of showing them growing into those characters. The issue is that the route that they take to get there is clunky and isn't exactly consistent with what we know about them. Splinter, for instance, who is presumably my biggest issue with this movie, is portrayed as a victim of prejudice who hates humans and has zero desire to ever interact with them. Now, you could definitely make the case that Splinter has always been aware of how the outside world would reject them, but he always approached it in this wise, fatherly type way. He still always felt like he wanted to do the right thing, even if people were rejecting them. And Splinter in this movie doesn't feel like the wise ninja master that we are accustomed to seeing. In fact, a lot of times in the film, he feels like a walking vessel for jokes. They even have him lusting after this mutated bug creature for some reason, because he's lonely and he wants to bone it, I guess. Such a strange creative decision for me in a quote-unquote kids movie. Since when has Splinter's sexuality ever been addressed or needed to be addressed? It feels like one of those self-insert moments where grown adults try to inject their own ideology into kids' movies.
That makes sense.
Now, we've seen the Turtles lusting after April to an extent, but we've never seen it with Splinter, and it felt very out of character and again like an odd choice. The Turtles themselves are again obviously not their usual selves. They are very clearly younger and still trying to figure some things out, but a lot of times it feels like their only real purpose is to deliver this constant barrage of pop culture references as well as this TikTok inspired dialogue. And after a while, I have to be honest, it really started to wear on me, and it really felt like the creators were desperately trying to make this movie more hip than it actually is.
That is why you fail.
And again, I just don't feel like the characters need that level of modernization to work. There's also a lot of attempts at comedy in this movie, most of which fall flat. It's a lot of oddly placed jokes about nipples and the turtles getting milked if humans were ever to capture them and put them in a lab.
Oh yeah, you can milk anything with nipples.
And on more than one occasion, they do this MCU-style cringe humor, where they poke fun at the ridiculous nature of the turtles themselves, or in some cases, the names of certain characters. It always comes off as more disrespectful than anything, and while most of the jokes don't really come off as too egregious or too damaging to the characters, it's just to the point where I hear humor like that so often in movies that now when I hear it, it instantly takes me out of the moment.
Stop it!
April was the cause of a lot of conversation prior to this movie being released, and if I'm being honest, I think she was underutilized. Her character was basically boiled down to this nerd who wants to be a reporter, but literally pukes whenever she gets nervous. In my opinion, it doesn't really do much as it pertains to selling the audience on this new version of the character. The whole message of this movie revolves around the character's desire to be accepted, and how each character deals with some level of ridicule or bigotry. A concept that could have actually worked if it was in the right creative hands, and if it was handled with some level of nuance. There's no nuance in this message whatsoever. In fact, it comes off very much like a heavy-handed after-school special on how prejudice and evil the world can be to people who are different.
Message!
Like a lot of modern movies, there are a lot of good ideas in Mutant Mayhem. They are just executed improperly. It feels like Seth Rogen was too concerned with trying to appeal to modern audiences that he forgot how important the legacy fans are. A good reboot or reintroduction should be able to appeal to both sides of the fandom. A good example of this is the animated 2007 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film, which to me did a much better job of bridging the gap between different generations of Turtle fans. There was enough new things to justify its existence, and there was enough familiar things to keep longtime fans happy.
I like it a lot.
And Mutant Mayhem feels like it's trying too hard to reinvent the wheel. As a longtime Turtle fan, this film did nothing to make me feel much of anything, or to make me feel like a kid again watching these characters for the first time. It kind of just exists and didn't leave much of an impression on me, and that's why I'm going to give it the Careless Sam Gerard.
I don't care! Y'all be cool. Right on.